What up, nerds? Welcome to the Nerdy Narrative. My name is Leslie, and today on the channel I'm going to go over all of the things that I read during the month of January, what I rated each one, and then I typically will talk about which one was my favorite read of the month and a favorite audiobook narrator. Yeah, let's just get right into it. So the first thing that I want to talk about, I read these all throughout the month. These are the first 9 volumes of the One Piece manga. It is a reread for me. If you've been around here since 2021, I think it was the first time that I started reading One Piece. I've reread it the first few 2 or 3 times now. I think this is my 3rd time through the first 23, and eventually I'm going to continue and I'm going to keep moving forward, but there's a reason why I'm rereading these, and that is because I'm going to be joining in with a group discussion about One Piece with a few other channels, mainly John from Talking Story. This is his first time experiencing One Piece. I'm so excited to hear what he thinks, and depending on what he thinks will mean the group will continue, or for those like me, we'll just continue on our merry little way doing a reread. So this is a very fun manga. It is a pirate manga. It is about main character Monkey D. Luffy. We meet him as a little boy where he decides he wants to be a pirate. He wants to be like Captain Red-Haired Shanks, who is the captain of a pirate crew that uses Luffy's town as a base for about a year. And he just becomes enamored of the pirates. He is never more than a few footsteps behind any of them every time they come into port. And he has just decided in his heart, his dream is to not only become a pirate, but to become the king of the pirates. And as the manga continues, Luffy grows up and he decides it's time for him to embark on his journey. So he takes a little boat and off he goes. Well, he comes to realize he needs a pirate crew. So the next few volumes are about Luffy as he is traveling around. He's ending up helping people, and through helping people, he's meeting potential mates for his crew. And it's so funny because when he decides that he wants to be your friend or you're going to be in his crew, that's it. He's just basically going to be dogging your footsteps until such time that you decide, hey, you know what? I do want to become a part of Luffy's crew. And more oftentimes than not, it is because Luffy displays characteristics that we all look for in a leader as well as a friend. Loyalty, friendship, the importance of you having a dream, a goal, and you taking those steps forward to reach that goal, and how Luffy is not going to get in your way to do that, but he's also not going to let anybody else get in your way either. Absolutely love this series. And there is a live action on Netflix, season 1, that is of the first 9 manga plus a few right after that. In fact, I think that first season goes ahead and finishes out the East Blue arc, which I think has... Nah, I'm not gonna lie. I don't know how many of the volumes of graphic novels are in that one. So even though those were a reread, I did on my reread continually rate each one of those volumes at least 4 and 5 stars. Now my next read, I don't have it physically. I was approved for an arc on NetGalley. Thank you, NetGalley and Berkeley, even though I had to take a roundabout way to get approved for that arc. For those of you that missed that weekly reads where I talked about this, I asked for permission to read the arc on my main account, The Nerdy Narrative. In my little bio section, I have all the places I share reviews, all of my social media, the number of people that follow me, interactions, all of that stuff is there. For whatever reason that I cannot figure out, Berkeley Publishing turned me down for the arc, as they have every single other arc I've ever asked for. So I had another NetGalley account that I only ever read one other book for, and I had to make that account because it was a read now link I wanted, and because I had requested it as the Nerdy Narrative, I couldn't click the read now button because it showed pending. So I took that dummy account, as I called it. I went ahead and asked for Witchcraft for Wayward Girls by Grady Hendrix again, just for shits and giggles to see if it would work, and it did. I was approved. I immediately started reading this book. It not only became my first new 5-star read of the year. It's also my favorite book by Grady Hendrix. I do have a dedicated review for this one that I will link in the cards for you. I'll put it down in the description box as well if you want to check that out. It's non-spoiler, of course, and just thoroughly enjoyed this book. It was nothing like I thought it was going to be. Sort of. Hendrix did an amazing job writing that one. So I would absolutely recommend this one if you're someone who likes horror. If you like Grady Hendrix, but you're okay with him writing something a little bit outside the norm for him, just loved it. My friend Tara messaged me this morning. She just finished reading it, and her first thing she said was, wow, that was some female rage in that one. It was such an apt description. So there you go. Definitely check that one out. The next book that I finished in January is a self-published novel that I accepted for review. It is called Okay, gosh, somebody actually wrote this out phonetically for me, and I was like, wow, that's really great, but I'm trying to picture it in my mind. It's not working. Unanimity by Alexandra Almeida, first book in the Spiral World science fiction series. I gave this one 3 stars. This is a story about 2 young men who have this idea that they come up with together in order to try and help make the world a better place. They've come together and created this digital realm that they call the down below. This whole realm is being monitored and overseen by an artificial intelligence named Sybil. And what is one of the biggest fears that we have regarding AI? That it can evolve. And of course Sybil does, but not in the way that I expected, and I hope you enjoy reading about that yourselves. So these 2 fellows create this world. Oh my goodness, there's so much more to it than what they thought. So they have this idea that they're going to have people go down, live out their deepest, darkest urges, and they're going to come back and they're going to want to change, because that's what Sybil is supposed to do. She individualizes this experience for this person and nudges them to want to be a better person. Does that always work? And can an AI actually do this? Does it need a human touch? So there's a little bit of a mystery involved, and there is, oh man, things just get sideways. There's a lot to enjoy. There is a lot of social commentary, as you might would expect, because that is our catalyst that leads these 2 young men to come together to create this world in the first place. Now, I am not somebody that enjoys reading a lot of social commentary. I am picking up a book because I want to escape the social commentary. So if that's something you like to avoid, just be aware that it's there. But I would encourage you to read the back of the book and see if it's something you might be interested in, especially if you like artificial intelligence or digital realms or things of that nature. It's very creative and imaginative, and I like the idea behind it. I did find the characters got to be a little bit confusing, because when you're on Earth, you have your earthly name, like my name is Leslie. In the down below, in the digital realm, your digital twin would have a different name, like Shadow, Twist, Thorn, things of that nature. That got very confusing because the characters still thought of themselves with their earthly name. They would call each other their earthly names, but then the author would be writing about them and use their digital twin name, and that got a little bit confusing for me. So just a heads up to pay careful attention to that part of it if you decide to pick this one up. Now, next is my most disappointing read of the year. You know, on the one hand, while I am sad that I had a 2-star read, it's also kind of nice to have that out of the way. It's like, okay, it's January. I've already had a 2-star read. We just went ahead and got that disappointment out of the way firsthand. The rest of the year is going to be great. That's how I'm choosing to look at it. But that 2-star read is Wind and Truth by Brandon Sanderson. This is the most disappointing book of his I have read to date, probably because it ruined one of my favorite fantasy series. I loved the Stormlight Archives, but I'm unfortunately that type of reader, and I reread so much that when I know the end of the series, or the end of the arc in this case, when I know how bad it is, that's all I can think about if I were to go reread the first 4 books. I thought the characters were completely out of character. The vast majority of this book could have been edited out because it was repetitious of the first 4. I feel sorry for anybody who reread the first 4 books to prepare for this one, because you probably had an even worse time than I did with it. And if that wasn't enough to gripe about, there were a whole lot of modern day words used. And I get it. I know that that's not always something easily to avoid, but Brandon Sanderson has written numerous novels where he hasn't done this. And this is something that stands out to me. It's a personal pet peeve of mine. So my brain, my subconscious is looking for it and it pounces on it. And I'm going, okay, you've done so well this whole series. No other words jumped out at me. And you've talked about this sort of thing in the previous novels, but you did it in a different way. You described it in a way that fit with your time, that didn't use these words. And so it just threw me out of the book, which I was already bored with because of all the repetition. So it didn't take much. And let me just move on, because I only gave that book 2 stars because I actually read it. And I am so disappointed in myself that I kept going, because I just thought I'll at least enjoy the Sanderlanche. Kind of like with Mistborn Era 1. That really should have been a duology. Hack off the last 3 or 4 chapters of the 3rd book, slap it on the back of the 2nd book. That would have been a great duology. That 3rd book was so unnecessary, didn't need it, and just, yeah. There's been a lot of things said about him writing Wind and Truth that I've not looked up to see if it's true or not. So it's strictly hearsay, but I've heard that he felt like he was burned out by writing all of those secret novels, and so there wasn't enough time really spent writing, working on, and editing Wind and Truth, which you're Brandon Sanderson. You can pause. You can hit pause. Your readers are not going to abandon you because you're going to take the time to polish something, to put something out that you're proud of. Nobody's going to be mad at you. You write books like a maniac. I would have much preferred waited another year or 2 years. I mean, we're already going to wait, 8 or 9 more before... Wait, well, I'm not waiting on the 2nd arc of Stormlight Archives. I'm not going to read it, but you get what I'm saying. Okay, I said I was going to move on. Let's do that. So the last book that I read during the month of January redeemed it all. So I read the 3rd book in the Empyrean series by Rebecca Yarros, Onyx Storm. And just today I saw a video. Apparently there's a lot of controversy going on around this poor author because she used the names for the dragons she borrowed from Gaelic. Now, I am in no way, shape, form, or fashion going to say a word to anybody about how they pronounce words. I can barely speak the English language correctly. I was born and raised here. It's the only language I've ever known. I should be perfect at it. I'm not. So I'm sure as hell not going to fault an author because she said Gaelic instead of Gaelic. I didn't even know until I saw Willow's video that Gaelic and Gaelic both exist and they're 2 different languages. Had no idea. But apparently in an interview, Rebecca Yarros mispronounced. She said Gaelic instead of Gaelic. I'm just going, maybe she read this. She looked up with her eyes these names that she gave the dragons, and perhaps someone else called it Gaelic to her first, and she didn't know it was mispronounced. The only reason I could even pronounce the dragons' names is because I listened to the audiobook. So your girl here is definitely not one to throw rocks at glass houses for that, but poor Rebecca Yarros, I don't know, that seems rather a silly thing to get upset about. Instead of saying, I have a bone to pick with Rebecca Yarros because you mispronounced it, how about nicely reaching out to her and saying, hey, you said this wrong. This is the language that you borrowed from. This is how you say it. These are how you pronounce all these words. And then step back and see how she does it going forward. If she listens and corrects herself, fantastic. You've just helped an author who's probably going to thank you for it and make sure everybody knows that you helped her. Whereas instead of saying, I am so mad at you, I have a bone to pick with you, you suck, that's the difference in where you live, I think. Because in the South, our grandmothers told us you catch more fly with honey than you do with vinegar. At any rate, I freaking love this book. I am mad at Rebecca Yarros for a different reason, and that is the ending. Woman, you are so wrong for what you did to us. You know what you did. You know what you did. I loved it because I am incredibly excited for the next one in the novel. But still, I love this book. I thought it was the best one in the series. It went back and recaptured all of the things about the first book, Fourth Wing, that I loved. That's what captured me. And this is even through the fact that the first two books I listened on audiobook. I cannot stand the narrator. Her name is Rebecca Soler, maybe how she pronounces her last name. I don't like her. I don't like her tone of voice. I just don't. But I listen to her because I just can't stand to put these books down once I pick them up. And because I ordered this really pretty special edition from Books A Million, it didn't come on release day, but my audiobook was waiting on me when I woke up that morning. But the one thing I do have to give that narrator credit for is in certain scenes where there's a lot of action going on, she ramps up her pacing. She builds the excitement and the emotion within me from the pacing and emotion that she puts into her voice. There's times where I would just have to pause the audiobook so that I would stop and breathe because she was just going and going and going. It was just ramping up and building and building. And I'm like, I'm not breathing because I'm holding my breath because she's just continuously narrating without taking a breath that I could tell. It's that good. So I like that aspect of her narration, but none of the rest of it. So it is quite obvious that Onyx Storm is my book of the month. I don't have a favorite narrator because my only two audiobooks were Onyx Storm and Wind and Truth by Brandon Sanderson. I've never been much of a fan of Matt Kramer and Kate Redding, and because I listened to a lot of the audiobooks for The Wheel of Time during my reread the last couple of years, I am so sick of Kate Redding and Matt Kramer's voices. And a lot of their voices in Wind and Truth are the exact same that they used for Wheel of Time. So they would use them here and I'm going, that's Loyal's voice. That's Egwene's voice. And so it was a little bit distracting to me. So I've just never been a fan of theirs. And I know they're beloved, but that's just my ears. They like what they like. There's nothing I can do about that. Wind and Truth aside, January was still a really enjoyable reading month. Great way to start off the year. February has taken off with a bang. I can't wait to do a February wrap up for y'all. So if you're looking for some really great reads, so far it's been epic fantasy, urban fantasy, I've got some horror going, and a historical. I guess I have to call it fiction because it is about a well-known historical person, but there's some fiction in there to just kind of liven up the story of this person. So let me just go ahead and stop there because it's about to turn into a preliminary February wrap up right here. Y'all, thank you so much for joining me today to talk about all the books that I read during the month of January. I hope that something I talked about today winds up on your TBR. You'll have to jump down in the comments and let me know if you decide to pick something up. And I would love to hear what your favorite book of January was. Thank you so much for being here. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will catch you in the next one. This channel would not be what it is today without its patrons, especially those of my top tier: Ev, Sharon, Kate, Andrew, Amanda, Ann, Tara, Star, Gail, John, Chad, Heidi, and Wilbur.